Hello, and welcome to episode 008 of Citizen of the World, the podcast. I am your host, Kathleen Parisien. On this week's episode of Citizen of the World, the podcast, we have a very special guest. This podcast is all about inspiring action outside of your comfort zone. And the best part about listening to a podcast is you're hearing a perspective of somebody that you don't normally talk to. And so really thank you for tuning in today. You're doing yourself a huge favor as you're really going to hear an inspiring story from our guest, Candice. How often have you ever heard of someone like leaving their job, renovating a bus, and taking off on an everlasting road trip with their husband? It's almost too good to be true, but I promise you it is true. Candice and her husband, Phil, recently literally picked up their life in Toronto and set off on a bus. They renovated a minibus, which I learned is a Skoolie. Am I pronouncing that right, Candice?
Oh, yeah.
Skoolie? Okay, we're going to hear all about a Skoolie today. So they've been adventuring throughout the United States. And this is the second time that Candice has left her corporate consulting job to travel. And yet this time she's doing it with her husband. So from Candice, we're going to hear about what's it like to leave your 9-to-5 job behind? What's it like living on a bus? What's it like just embracing the unknown and being completely free? So welcome, Candice, to the Citizen of the World, the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited about the opportunity to be featured here.
Yeah. And so Candice, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you came to live on a bus.
I'm from Ottawa in Canada. I graduated university with a degree in commerce with information systems and operations management as my concentrations. I started working for a global consulting firm before I even graduated, and have been working for global consulting firms, a couple different ones at this point, for over 10 years now. And it's a good career in the sense that there's lots of different things that you get to see and learn because it's all project-based, but at the same time, it's very high burn, very high stress. The hours are long and the demands are high, which is what drove me to leave twice. And so, I think that the first time I left is probably a little bit more of a crazy story than this time around because I was burnt out and drowning and my mom was sick and whatever. This time it was, we got married and wanted to enjoy our lives, so we decided to bail.
Amazing. And how long have you been on the road now for?
Since December 30th. So I think that's about 7 weeks now.
Amazing. And so you talked a little bit about burnout in the consulting world. From your experience, with your colleagues, do they wish that they could do what you're doing?
I have heard a lot of that. When I did this departure, I told people the truth about what I was doing because I actually knew. Last time I didn't know what I was going to do. I just bailed. But this time it was I'm going to go live in a bus for a year. And I heard every reaction that you could possibly think of. I had some people who sort of looked at me a little bit sideways and were like, kind of fits. You're a bit crazy. I can see it. I had some people who were like, that's completely insane. I could never do that, but it sounds awesome. And I wish I could. And I'm like, well, hold on. How do you in the same breath say, I could never do it, but I wish I could? Some of these people thought that they hated camping, so they couldn't do it. Girl, I do not like camping. Some of them thought it would just be too hard to manage the finances or just generally too much. They couldn't fathom getting out of their mortgage or whatever it is. But whatever it is that's holding you back, there's always a way out.
Absolutely. Do you think that it's more so excuses? For you and Phil to decide to do this is something that you decided together, right? You didn't let any other people's opinion influence you. You guys stayed strong to what you were doing.
Yeah, we actually, so we got engaged in August, I think, of 2018. And we started planning the wedding for August of 2019, which was beautiful and amazing. And I loved it. And then I think it was around January, February of that same 2019 year where I was starting to get burnt out again, working too many hours, had too much on my plate, kind of didn't like the way it was trending. And I started getting very like escapist thoughts, I guess. And so I would go to Phil and be like, let's go to Bali, like, let's move to Hawaii, or like, let's do this. And he was like, what are we gonna do with Cooper, the dog, you know? And I was like, yeah, good point. And a few years back, I had seen this guy do a van conversion, and he had done it very specific to building his like photography mobile that he wanted to travel around the United States and different places doing photography. And it was just like incredible. And I thought, wow, I would love to do that, because I had just gotten back from my last road trip, which we did in my little Cobalt for 2.5 months. So I showed Phil one of those videos, and he's like, oh, that's ridiculous. We should get a school bus. And I was like, how is that less crazy than a van? But okay. And so we decided that we would look into it to see if the concept was at all feasible, right? Because you see these people online, and it's like, look at me, I renovated a school bus for $1,000, and you're like, okay. So we looked into it. We're like, how do we power this thing? How do we have running water? What's the floor plan gonna look like? What's our monthly budget for expenses gonna have to look like? You know, how many nights a month do we expect to spend at a campsite? What's the average cost of that in America? That kind of thing. And so we did a ton of research. I think we must have watched like 2,000 different van and bus renovation videos, and videos about people's budgets and whatever, and made some spreadsheets because I'm a consultant. And we're like, wow, this is totally doable. So this was about May. And then we're like, you know what though, we need to like plan that wedding.
Yeah. Before we escape, we have to get married, right?
We should probably like refocus and just get the wedding thing off without a hitch. So we sort of put the bus thing on hold, even though we're like, we could do this. And we decided on a short school bus for a lot of reasons I can get into. We're like, let's do this, but let's get married first. So we did. We had, you know, a beautiful fairy tale wedding. And then we went to Roatan in Honduras for our honeymoon for 10 days. Oh, wow. While we were there, we're like, bus things. Let's do bus things.
It's interesting how like when you decide something like this, the universe kind of like, it can't let it go, right? Like once you're vegan, like you need to pursue this, and there's nothing to kind of, even though the wedding was there, like afterwards it came back to you, like you knew you had to do it.
We bought the bus the weekend after we got back from our honeymoon.
You knew that you kind of wanted to like the thing about a honeymoon and like going on vacation for 7 days, it's like, it's just 7 days. You don't really get to do much in that time. You know, you're just a tourist. It's like, you guys really want the experience.
Yeah. And I love immersing myself into different places. Like we've been in Florida for, I think, 5 weeks. So like, we've really gotten a sense of this state, and it's very different, like from Ocala to the Keys and everything in between, like Orlando and Miami and Vero Beach, like the Space Coast, like it's all so different. Right. Florida's awesome. People are nuts in the best way.
And so what are you guys like, you've been touring for seven weeks already now. What is your plan? Do you guys have a plan of where you're going?
Kind of, but it's pretty loosey-goosey. So initially we were just like, let's get south, let's get away from winter. Mission accomplished. It's 29 degrees Celsius here. And then now that we're in the Keys, we're here until the 24th of February. And then we're just gonna go west. In Florida, it's beautiful, but it's a bit expensive. There's not as much. So, you know, in Canada, we have Crown land that you can camp on for free. In the US, they have what's called BLM land, same thing. But there's not very much of it in Florida. There's some ways you can get free campsites. And actually, I'm going to write a blog post about how to do Florida cheaper. We didn't necessarily follow all the advice I'm going to give. Learned it the hard way, as usual. But the West Coast has way more BLM land. So our next like major destination is Louisiana. So we're hoping to, especially with all of the hurricane damage that has gone on there, we're hoping to volunteer and help repair some of the damage. Phil, being a carpenter, has a lot of skills that could help them out.
Wow, so not only are you guys like on this never ending road trip, but you're actually doing good along the way as well.
That's a really big part of what I want to do. It's a little bit easier in the US to do that with Phil's skill set because of the hurricane damage and stuff. But we're also planning to go down through Mexico and Central America at some point. And I would like to volunteer more down there. Both of us are scuba dive certified. And so I'm really interested in trying to help do anything that saves the ocean. So like reef cleanup, cataloging fish, beach cleanup, don't care really, just something. I've wanted to volunteer for, gosh, probably almost 8 years. I've been thinking about it and I haven't done anything. So
but like we
why
said,
not now?
Like we said before, like whatever you want to do when you have that calling, it's very difficult to turn it off. And so even though it took you 8 years to do it, like you're doing that. And like, what does it feel like to let go of the 9-to-5 corporate stuff that kind of like regiments your life? Like you don't have a time for even trying a new hobby or doing something. How has this shift, like now you're able to think about volunteering and thinking about helping other people, right? Like how has that changed in your mindset? How do you feel that change?
It's like I was so ready to not have to do my job anymore. So I don't miss it at all. I miss the people a little bit. I had some really fantastic people that I worked with. I don't really miss the schedule, but I would say that I'm craving coming up with a different schedule. For the first couple of weeks that we were on the road, we still had a lot of renovations to do on the bus. So like the bathroom wasn't finished because it was December and we couldn't run the plumbing because it would freeze the pipes. And so we couldn't finish the bathroom before we left. So we had to do that once we got down south. And we had to paint the bus and we had just a bunch of little things. I'm actually going to do an Instagram series soon with all of the updated photos of the bus with all the renovations detailed. But we've been working on those for weeks. And then once we stopped, we were at a Skoolie swarm, which was awesome. So it was like, I think there was over 100 different Skoolie renovations that got together. Cool. So we got to meet all kinds of awesome people and see their different, how they did their buses, which was super fun. And then since then we were in Miami and Orlando, we went to Disney World. We have been in the Keys. Like it's been a vacation, but I'm like, now I'm kind of like, okay, when do we start to like do stuff, you know, like, and we started talking about like, do we start to maybe think about working on a work week schedule? Like maybe we do Monday to Wednesday as just like work days where we get up early, go to a cafe, work all day, or for Phil, like go do whatever it is at a Home Depot to like find some cash jobs or something. But like, we haven't gotten there yet because we're in the Keys and it's still vacation.
Yeah. Now you're in the vacation mode, but I feel like you're really wanting to have a routine. Because like a lot of people think like, oh, when you're traveling, it's maybe people won't want to travel because they don't like that non-routine. A lot of people need a routine, but even though when you are traveling and living in a bus, you can set a routine.
Oh, totally. I mean, I have coffee. Like I have my coffee. We have in the garage of the bus, like under the bed, that's the garage. It's I've got a yoga mat, I've got snorkel gear, I've got my Merfin for mermaid swimming. I know I might mermaid, we'll see.
How difficult was it, Candice, to like let go of all of the stuff that you had? Because like I've seen the pictures of the bus and I'll post it on my blog as well, that there's not that much room. So you would have had to get rid of a lot of stuff.
Oh man, you have no idea. So, and you were at my house, so you know, like we had a lot of stuff. So we started purging, I think like 2 months before we left. We sold some stuff on Kijiji. It's like I sold like my old PS2 and all the games. I sold the old Wii and different things like that with some kitchen gadgets and whatnot. I think I must have done like between 6 and 8 carloads of donations to Salvation Army.
Wow.
I do have some stuff stored at my parents'. So I have, I think 2 wardrobe boxes, 6 kind of big Tupperwares, a treadmill, a table saw, and my coffee table stored with my parents. So it was like a 10-foot U-Haul van full. And the stuff that I kept, it was like things that I don't want to get rid of because I might need them again, but I don't need them here. So like, for example, one of those Tupperwares is full of stilettos. I love, like, girl, you know me.
Any stilettos? Phil didn't let you bring any stilettos in the bus?
2 pairs.
But how did you feel to actually like liberate yourself of all this stuff, like to donate all this to
So after all that, we still had to call 1-800-GOT-JUNK, and we filled a whole dump truck of stuff from our house like 3 days before we left. Just threw it all in the garbage.
Would you say that people live with way too much stuff? Like we don't need half of this stuff?
Oh, totally. And then the first place we stopped was my friend Tani in Washington, D.C. I ended up leaving I had brought 2 suitcases. I thought they'd be useful to store like blankets or whatever in, but they were just really awkward and hard to deal with in the garage of the bus. So I actually left those full of things at her place. So like we've even purged since we've been on the road.
That's amazing. Because like I feel when I backpacked for 6 months, like it was so liberating to just have my backpack, to just have the things I needed. I still had too much stuff, but still like we don't need that much as human beings. Like just the simplicity of things is what we need.
It's amazing how much we don't need. It's like this wall behind me is my closet. And honestly, like I don't wear half the clothes that I brought. I wear the same thing every day. I wear jean shorts and a tank top or a bathing suit. Like I brought dresses, which like maybe I'll need at some point. But like even now as I'm looking at it, I'm like, maybe I just donate that too. So I think we'll continue to purge.
Amazing. It's liberating. And for our readers to hear that, you know, like, especially in North America, we're so caught up in like buying stuff and getting new curtains and getting this and that, when like none of that matters.
No. And especially for all these people that are travel bloggers, like God love them. And I guess I'm trying to be one too. So, you know, don't stop following us, but like we sell you stuff that you maybe don't need sometimes. And like what I noticed as well is that like the more of like those types of accounts that I followed, the more Instagram would start prompting me with different product placements. So it's not even like that the bloggers are trying to sell you something, because most of the time if they're like, this is a good product, it's like, well, they probably tried it, so it might be if you need it. But all the product placement on Instagram, and it's like, oh, you know, hair extensions or like this bag for traveling, and it's like, no, like you don't need a bag with 6,000 pockets to be able to go do a road trip. You just need whatever backpack you have in your closet is fine.
Yeah, exactly. And so how are you guys going to start making money on the road? Because that's what a lot of people, that's why people don't want to do this, right? Like, how am I going to make money? Like,
yeah, it's crazy. So for me, I think it might be a little bit easier than Phil, just because the nature of what I do is it can be online. So for me, I'm actually looking into career coaching. So I'm I think I might do it through another company just so that I don't have to go search for clients, because that's quite challenging when you're starting out.
Yeah.
But in my career already, I've been a coach for a whole bunch of different professionals. Over 25 people I've coached in my life, and I've coached them through different project situations, promotions at a big like global consulting conglomerate. I've coached them through, you know, client issues, team issues, all kinds of stuff. So I have the experience of coaching. So I think that's something that I could probably do online. And I probably could make some decent coin doing it. The other thing that I might do, it's a bit time consuming, but I made all the cushions in the bus, like this cushion. And I didn't realize how much people pay for these things, but like the way we did it was we bought the foam at a wholesale place, and I went to a fabric store and I bought this like microfiber fabric. We got microfiber because it's pretty hard to stain it. Everything just kind of wipes off, and it's really good for dogs because their hair doesn't stick to it as much, and they don't really like to chew on it. So Cooper hasn't ruined the cushions yet, knock on wood. But I was talking to this woman about her cushions in her van, and she paid $600 for them. I did not spend close to that to make these cushions. So if I could, I might go on Etsy and sell cushions.
So not only, you know, like Candice is talking on a bunch of points right now, is like, you can make money off of the skills that you already have. If you're already working with somebody, chances are there's a lot of things that you could do to make money off of that you're just not. And like whoever you're working for is the one making all the money and you're doing all the work. So like you can actually find things that you're good at that people will buy online.
100%.
And as you're saying too, it's like you don't have to have it all figured out. If you just start going and you met other Skoolies and learned that what they paid to renovate their bus, like now you could have a business of renovating Skoolies just from doing it yourself. You know more than the next person.
Yep, and a lot of people do that, and that's actually part of our long-term plan as well. So we're going to, I think we're going to start it when we get to British Columbia, because we want that business to be legal, and we can't legally work in the US.
Right.
I can work remotely from anywhere as long as it's like for a Canadian company, which is the plan. But the that's where it's a little bit more challenging for Phil, because what he does is so physical. But our bus is beautiful, I think. Of all of the buses that I've seen now with the Swarm and stuff, like I would say it's up there in terms of like quality, the layout, the way things work, the practicality of it. Some people have these like, you know, it looks like a New York loft and it's beautiful and it photographs super well, but like, do you really need an espresso machine when you're living in 80 square feet?
Right.
I don't think so.
But that's what's so fun about this, is that you can really design these like tiny spaces for what you need.
Yeah. And that's where we think like we could probably differentiate ourselves from the perspective of like, we have some templated floor plans that you can choose from, but then the rest of it is like, he's a custom carpenter. So like, dream it, dreamer, we'll build it.
He can do a lot, and he can get a lot of cash jobs on the way too. Everybody always needs renovations, especially good renovations. That's for sure. Like he can always find work. I don't doubt that at all. Yeah.
And I've noticed it's really interesting trend in people who are doing Skoolie renos, because I follow like everybody that I can. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. A lot of people are framing up their whole Skoolie using 2x4s. We don't have a single 2x4 in here. So a 2x4, it reduces a lot of your space that you have in your bus. They're thick. I mean, they're 2x4. But the reason that builders build with 2x4s is because they have to be load bearing. Your bus is already load bearing. Your furniture inside doesn't need to bear really any load at all. So you build the whole thing with plywood, 3/4 inch ply. That's what our whole Skoolie is built with.
Much more affordable that way too, right? Like how much did it cost you guys in all of this? You don't mind me asking.
Oh, it's a good question. So we bought the bus. We found the bus on Kijiji. This guy was selling like, he had 5 buses out of somewhere in Toronto. We got the bus. He listed it at $5,500. And then when we went there, we asked if we paid cash, could he take 5? And he said, sure. And then he contacted us again and he said, if I take the stop sign and the yellow bar that opens off the front and a couple of the seats, would you take it for 42? And we're like, yeah.
You don't need that, for sure. Take it.
We have to, so legally you have to take the stop sign and the yellow bar off anyways. And we were going to take the seats out. So we're like, yeah, that's an okay deal.
So, and then, so you got it for a discount. And then what about the actual renovations? How much did that?
So I think we've put about 15,000 into the renovations. There are some things that we got a little bit more high end that like you don't have to do. And one example of that is our solar system.
Oh, I was going to say your beautiful stove as well. Like
that thing's awesome. Yeah.
Really nice stove. But
yeah.
Tell me about your solar system.
So, so we spent about $5,000 on the solar, for a bunch of reasons, but a big part of that is actually that, some of the regulations in Canada prevent you from purchasing, certain products. So for the batteries, we actually had, we had to buy our batteries from China, and we got taxed like crazy bringing them in. So I think the batteries, they might have cost like maybe $1,000 or something like that. And we spent $800 on taxes or like tariffs or import fees or whatever. So that was ridiculous. But if you were able to get them wholesale, like there are ways you could shave money off that. Plus our system is super powerful. So on the roof, we have 8 100-watt solar panels. So that gets us 800 amp hours of or something like that. I forget all the right words. Phil's better at this than me, but lots of power coming in from the sun. And then we have a charge controller, a pure sine wave inverter, and our lithium ion batteries. We have 3,600 watt hours on our batteries.
So you don't need to plug in electricity when you go to campsites. You have full energy.
Yeah, exactly. So here, this is what it is. So we have an 80 amp EP Ever MPPT solar charge controller, which is a really good charge controller. And we have a power Teachin 3,000 watt pure sine wave inverter. And yeah, 3,600 watt hours of batteries. And those batteries are lithium ion phosphate cells that we bought basically the individual cells, and then we hammered copper piping to build the battery bank ourselves. So all that sits underneath the bed. We also have the ability to plug into shore power. So we have an extension cord is what that means. So we have like a big 60-foot extension cord or something. So if we wanted to, we could plug different bits and pieces of our setup into shore power if it's there, but we're able to operate off grid 100%. We don't need to get power ever, really.
Wow.
And we have enough water to go for like 5 days.
Wow. So from what I'm understanding from this story is not only, did you have the courage to leave your comfortable lives, but you're actually learning so much from stepping into this. Like now you're renewable energy specialists.
Yeah. Who knew off-grid tiny living was going to be something I would actually know about in my life? I mean, I can't, and I only scratched the surface. Like Phil spent weeks researching this stuff. He's super humble, so he'll not say he's actually an expert, but he's so good. And it was one of the most talked about things at the Skoolie swarm.
Wow.
It was just the solar setup. And some people are like, oh yeah, I run AC on my solar. And we're like, well, hold on. Are you sure that you do? Because we looked into that and it's really tough.
So you're really industry leaders at this point too of the Skoolie life that you never imagined that this would be. You just wanted to do your own thing. And now you're like, you could help other people build their own Skoolies, renewable energy and cost efficient as well. It doesn't sound like it was that elaborate. It's much cheaper than buying a Winnebago.
Oh my God, yeah. So we were 20 grand all in for everything. And like I said, $5,000 on the solar because of, I think if you were in the US and you bought all the exact same components as us, you would still get that significantly cheaper because the import fees wouldn't be as bad. And then also you have more options in the US to buy better battery banks, right. Onshore as well. Because Canada has this thing about, it was because of the plane accident where a Samsung battery exploded on a plane. It happened years and years ago. Since then, we've had higher regulations on the batteries that we allow into the country. So they're not allowed to package them up the same way, basically. Makes it more expensive for us, but not the end of the world.
You've just learned so much of this from just trying something new, essentially. And that's what's so cool is when we do get out of our comfort zones and try something new, the whole world really opens up to us. But it is difficult, right, Candice? It is very difficult to do this. It takes a lot of courage, fearlessness, but it also, what advice do you have for people that are scared to go into the unknown?
Well, I mean, if it's specifically about doing a bus, we met this man at the Skoolie swarm who had the cheapest bus renovation I've ever seen. It wasn't glamorous inside or anything like that. He didn't have chalkboards with cute messages or whatever, but he was all in, I think, under $5,000 US for the bus, the renovations, all the materials, everything. And he just went to thrift stores. So his outdoor table that comes off the side of his bus is an ironing board that he just hung off the side of his bus. But it's perfect because it's meant to be one that flips down off a wall.
Right.
It's got a little leg that comes down, and he just uses that as his outdoor cooking table. Like, so I would say, be creative. Don't confine yourself to like, oh, I have to be what I see on Instagram in order to make this happen, because you totally don't. And also, like, take it one step at a time. So a big goal is really, really tough to think about in its entirety. But if you break it down into more digestible chunks, then that can help you to achieve what it is that you want. So what is that expression? It's like, we always overestimate what we can achieve in a day, but we underestimate what we can achieve in a year. So in a day, of course, you're not going to like get a bus renovated, build solar power, have plumbing, like, no. But in a year, absolutely, right? You can totally do that. You just set up like a little schedule, like, okay, first is I need to find the bus. So what do I need to know about buses? Where do I find them? Who should I talk to make sure that I buy a good one? Maybe you got to find a mechanic who you trust that can review the bus for you and make sure it's fine. You start to break the thing down into more digestible chunks. And then before you know it, you're starting to make progress towards a goal that seemed like something that was so far stretched that you could never get to it.
And so in this situation, we're talking about building a schoolie, but you're talking about anybody, what they could do if they want to just do something. Basically, you're saying, like, don't compare yourself to others, focus on your own path. And one step at a time. You can't look at this like big challenge as like a mountain, but rather like get up that mountain slowly and your dreams can come true.
100%. Like, if I compared myself to all of the people that are doing van life and schoolie life and have like 50,000 followers on Instagram and was like, oh, I can never do, like, I'm never going to be that, we would have never got on the road. Like, and those are the people that inspired us. Like, we drew inspiration from the design choices they made in their vehicles, from the places that they're going, and from some of the things they've done as well. Like, oh, wouldn't that be so great to go do that as well? But like, so what if we don't get as many followers? And so what if our pictures don't look like their pictures, or, like, we're figuring it out. I'm also learning how to edit photos now.
You're always learning, right? And that's the key to, like, when you step outside your comfort zone, so much comes from just learning new things when you're vulnerable, right? Like, if you just stay within your own comforts, like, you'll never put yourself out there and never amaze yourself.
There's so much you can do. I mean, anybody who knows how to use PowerPoint and can format a slide can get a job on Upwork.
Yeah.
Like, there's people looking for that kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah, we live in a culture today where a lot of people don't want to work for somebody. People are being more awakened to living their best life and having adventures like you guys are doing, like volunteering internationally, just like living for more than just paying bills and just working, right? That's what we're essentially talking about, that it is possible for people to do that. And that is what you and Phil really symbolize, especially for a lot of people that feel stuck in their jobs and they have these mortgages and they feel like this mortgage is like so important when it's really not, right? Like, yeah, what you're doing is such a bigger investment for your future than anything else could be.
And there's so many things that you can listen to and watch to kind of help you get in the mindset as well. So like, it's kind of a different concept, but similar kind of path, I guess. So like, I was, as all of us do as women, feeling a little bit bad about myself. And I was noticing that my Instagram feed was all these like super skinny women. And so I just like I stopped following, and it's like, it sort of helps because like a lot of these people, if you really do the research, they either edit the crap out of their photos or the Instagram models are like, they're bulimic, they're anorexic, they're dealing with all this stuff. And, why, right? Like you don't need to be stick thin and gorgeous to start a following of people. I mean, there's tons of accounts out there that are not even in the hashtag body positive realm, but just people that are normal people that are doing cool things.
Yeah. It's just about being authentic, right? Like, we all have a gift within us. And if you're trying to be somebody else, you're not being yourself. And in this situation, you guys just completely did your own thing, and it's so good that you unfollowed these, that you knew you were conscious. Like when we go out in the unknown, we're much more conscious of what is good for ourselves, and when we're caught in mainstream society, it's difficult to see that your environment might be actually what's toxic.
Oh, totally, it can be. And what you allow to, like, I think of it the same way as I think of like when you get feedback, because you get feedback from people, whether it's work feedback or your friends giving you feedback, your husband, whatever, your dog even. And some feedback is good. And so you kind of want to put that in your filing system and keep it as a thing, like, oh, you know what, like, yeah, I need to get better at doing the dishes right away because I don't want to get bugs in the bus, right? Whatever. But some feedback is not good. And so you just kind of let that fly by. And so I always think of like these things as almost like a filing system. And it's like, what is worth allowing your brain to absorb and what's not?
Because you have to protect yourself, especially if you have a dream. So many people don't, for their own ego, will tell you not to do it. Like when I was going to Israel, a lot of my closest friends told me, don't go. They don't speak English there. When I was just so aware to know, like, they're telling me this because they don't want me to go, not because like I still need to grow. They don't want me to grow because it's about them.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. And I definitely had, like when we started telling people, and we told people after we already started, we bought the bus, we gutted it. After that, we started telling people. So like we were doing it, you know, we got all kinds of wacky feedback, like from people. Some of it was positive, but mostly it wasn't super supportive. Most of it was pretty on the negative side.
But that's what's so cool about you and Phil is like this, you're doing it regardless. And that's what everybody, when you make a decision, you can't second guess yourself. You just have to go. You have to just, because there's going to be other decisions you have to make anyway. So like when you make a decision, stick to it and just keep going, and blinders. Like you said, like filing system, like just disregard it.
Yeah. And people, you know, they like to give you all these reasons as to why it's not going to work out right. Oh, well, it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough with Cooper. And like, what if he gets car sick? And it's like, Cooper's fine.
He's fine. Dogs want to be with you, right? Dogs just are happy to be along. And I'm sure Cooper's life has improved significantly from you guys doing this.
Oh, he loves it. Like, he doesn't love driving. He's fine driving. He typically just goes to sleep, but he's really afraid of big trucks. So when we're on the highway and the big trucks go by, he gets really scared. But he just, now that the bathroom's finished, he goes in there. It's his little den. He can't see anything because we'll close the curtain. So he's just hiding in his little shower stall, and he's cool.
Oh, that's amazing. See, so you really can't listen to what people say, and you just have to do your own thing. But how often do you guys actually drive? Like, I imagine it's really gas guzzling. I imagine it's time consuming to drive. So you really kind of, I imagine you stay local a little bit more.
We try to. That's actually one of the things about being in a Skoolie that can be a little bit challenging, and what drove us to get a smaller one. So we have a shorty. It's 5 windows long, which from nose to tail, it's about 20 feet, with the bikes on the front 23 feet long. So to fit in a regular parking space, you need to be 20 feet. With the bikes, we're a little bit over, but you know, you just let them hang over the curb or whatever it is. So we are very mobile. We can go anywhere, and we do. We've parked this thing in busy tourist areas. We've parked it off-road in the forest. We've pretty much parked it everywhere we could put it, but it can be a little bit like exhausting sometimes if you are moving around a lot. So we had a period of time where we were moving like every 2 or 3 days, sometimes even every day. And that was really tiring because you have to pack up and go and then unpack and then and it gets a little bit tiring. But we try to stay places now for 4 or 5 days if we can, just because it's a little bit less stressful.
Yeah. And
I'm hoping once we get to Louisiana that we're actually going to be staying in the same spot for 2-3 weeks if we can.
Yeah.
It's the longest we've stayed.
Find some stability on the road as well, right? Like just because traveling doesn't need, you don't have to exhaust yourself all the time. You can lay low in some places.
Oh, totally. And sometimes you almost feel guilty doing it, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm in the city. I've never been here before. I should be out exploring, but I'm tired. I'm drained. And I feel like I just need to I don't know, play Sudoku for 3 hours in the bus. That's okay. You're allowed to take those moments because that's the difference between a vacation and full-time travel. This is our life now. And if we are going to do this in a way that's sustainable and that actually works long-term, we have to be able to take those moments to just like sit down and have a coffee and do nothing for a few hours, because we would do that if we were at home on your average Saturday.
That's a good point. Even though everything is new and like overstimulus and like you want to be trying to do everything, like you have to ignore the fear of missing out. Like you're on your own path, right? So you can do whatever you want. That's what's so cool about this.
Yeah. And like when people want to sort of give you those reasons why it's not going to work, it's usually something that they're almost projecting, you know, like sometimes it's out of the goodness of their heart, like, oh, well, what if this, and have you considered that? And that's fine, right? So if it's like trying to help you to think through the thing that you're doing, then that's great. Just, you know, you can either say, yeah, I've looked into it, I got it, or you can just say, thanks, I'm going to look into that, I didn't think of that. But when it's something that's like, oh, well, you shouldn't do this because of X, like you really need to like question like whether they think that you shouldn't do it because you can't overcome whatever that is, or if they think that they couldn't do it because of that and they're just putting that on you.
Right. And it's so cool. It's like if you're anything like me, which I know that you are, when somebody tells you you can't do something, you want to do it even more.
Oh my God. Like tell me that I can't climb Mount Everest and watch me summit that thing.
Yeah. It's like, sometimes the negative feedback is also the fuel to keep you to get you going as well.
It totally can be.
But what's so cool about what you guys are doing is like you said 1 year, like you took a 1 year leave from work, but really what you're gearing up, you should, like, there's no limits, right? Like if you guys can just keep going, there's no reason that it should only last 1 year.
Yeah, that's like, I'm very, very fortunate with my job in the sense that I have the year leave of absence, which is actually a no strings attached leave. And there is a pay to it. So I do get $1,000 a month. So that's helpful because I don't have to make a ton of money anytime soon, although I would like to, but I don't have to. I think they pay that out quarterly. But it all depends on your budget. I actually am going to do a blog post about the financials of it all. Being a spreadsheet lover, I have my budget, which I'll share. I also have things that we've learned. So like we had Wi-Fi challenges at first because we were using this little global Wi-Fi hub thing and it wasn't getting network like anywhere. And it was $100 US a month. So it was like $130 Canadian. And we were not getting any service. And like the couple of times we were like in a town, like we're at a Walmart, you know, and we popped the laptops open to like try to like get the website up, or like for Phil, he's doing all the video editing. He was like trying to get, you know, stuff to download. Nothing was working. So I just bit the bullet and got a phone plan, canceled the global Wi-Fi. Like you learn that stuff along the way and it changes your budget completely. And it's important to like keep track of those things. So for us, we estimated that we would spend about $2,000 a month on travel expenses. And we knew the first month would be an anomaly because we were still doing renovations. So I also want to do like some financial analysis and actually like download all our visa statements and like see if we're actually tracking towards that. And then if we're not, that's fine. We just have to adjust our budget and adjust some of our plans. We have to take more time to work, or we have to, you know, do less of something, right? Like spend less time at paid campsites.
Yeah, exactly. You can know by being conscious of your budget. It's really something you have to maintain, especially if you want to keep going and be sustainable. You have to be conscious of where the money is going.
I went a totally different way. You were asking about the leave of absence. And if I'll go back, I might. I haven't decided yet. But I think a big part of it is somewhat contingent on both of our ability to make some money while we do this, and a little bit on like how our business idea around doing bus conversions and potentially a rental fleet actually works out. Because if that stuff works out to a point where like we're able to have enough income that we can contribute to our RSPs, we can, you know, have a nice cushion to not, you know, have every dollar matter, then I think, why would you ever do anything different?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's also like, as long as you believe it, it can happen.
It can.
If we're always thinking like, oh, like if we're thinking negative or limiting beliefs, it's not going to happen. But if you really believe that, like, I'm going to make money online, I'm going to be able to contribute to my RRSPs, you can do it. And even I wanted to say, like, when you're talking about the budget, most people spend more money in their mortgages, in groceries at home, on their car payments, all of the bills than what you guys are doing. It's actually probably cheaper to do this. Initial upfront costs, of course, but like it's cheaper to live on the road like this than to be stable.
It is, and that was a huge part of what really convinced Phil that this was a real thing that we could do, because we're like, okay, for a loan in Toronto, we paid $2,100 a month in rent. That did not include utilities, so the utilities on top of that would be $300 to $500 a month, plus Phil's cell phone. My work paid for my cell phone, so that wasn't a thing. Internet,
there's so
gas, insurance for our cars. I mean, we still have insurance for the bus, but like, and it just is crazy. And then plus living in Toronto, everything is more expensive. So if you want to just go grab a drink, like there's $100 gone,
Yeah. And people aren't conscious, so people give themselves excuses like, oh, it's too expensive to go travel. But like, it's also expensive to do what you're doing. And like that money, if you're conscious of where your money is going, you can definitely do much more with that money.
And I think when you work, like, at least, and this is the pattern that I found myself in that I wasn't happy with, like when you work, whether it's 9 to 5, or even if it's, in my case, 8 to 8, when you work like a job like that and you're not really finding that you're getting, either a fulfillment from it or enough time to do other things that fulfill you. So like I wasn't even able to get to a yoga class in a week. Like you couldn't pay me to find the time. What do you do, right? You end up turning to, well, I just need an outlet. I just need something to relax. So I'm going to have a drink, or I'm going to go to a bar, or I'm going to make mac and cheese tonight because I just need to like relax, So you get into this like treat yourself, and then you end up spending more money because you're going out more because you need to treat yourself because you're so stressed from the week. You spend more money, you get fat. Unhealthy habits, right? Whether it's drinking, whether it's eating unhealthy, whether it's not getting to the gym, not prioritizing yourself in the right way. Like there's just so many things and bad habits that fall out of it, and that I see people falling into that same pattern all the time. And I was sick of it. And for me, I'm the type of person that needs a massive change. Like I love to like take everything in my life and like throw it up in the air and see what happens. Other people, it's more gradual changes that work for them, and that's fine too. But being conscious of where those bad patterns are and trying to like find ways to turn them off is really, really important.
Absolutely. And Candice, like you're such an inspiration to everybody, and we'll definitely have to have you on the podcast again as time goes. I'm really excited to seeing your financials, to see like how much is it to actually be on the road.
Yeah.
And all of the advice that you can share with people so that when they're ready to do this, like they can learn from your mistakes, right? That's the whole point of not making mistakes again, is learning from other people that have already done it.
Yeah, and we've definitely made our fair share of mistakes.
That's living, though. If you're not making mistakes, you're not living. So I think about the listeners that are listening in, like, when's the last time you made a mistake? And if you haven't made a mistake recently, then like it's time to make a mistake.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Even in consulting, there's and all kinds of different like technical work, there's lots of people that are trending towards this fail fast mentality, because the faster you fail, the faster you figure it out. So, and I used to tell people something similar when I was a snowboard instructor: if you're not falling, you're not learning. Yeah. So go fall, go fail. You'll succeed faster.
Fall, you'll fail. That is the advice that we're getting from Candice today. So this is amazing. Thank you so much for being on here. And we went a little over time, but that's good. This was like so much information. And thank you, Candice. Really, thank you for being yourself and just like going out there and doing something so crazy. I still can't believe you're doing this. So I'm really going to be keeping up on you. And definitely you're going to come back on the podcast.
Oh, thank you. This has been awesome. I feel like I could talk for hours about it. So
Good, Candice. So we will thank you so much for tuning in today, and be sure to follow Candice on Facebook and on Instagram. Candice, where can everybody find you?
So on Instagram, we are Max Leisure. It's Max and then dot, like a period, and then leisure. And then on Facebook, our page is just Max Leisure. We are going to be doing YouTube as well, which is already set up. It's also just called Max Leisure, but we haven't posted any videos yet. I think we might try to start filming them in a few days. So
this is exciting. Everybody keep posted. Like, this is the beginning, right? Like, this is the beginning of a year-long, maybe even longer journey. So really, where everybody needs to tune into this and contact Candice through Facebook or Instagram, anywhere that if you have a question about Skoolie, building a Skoolie bus, Candice and Phil are the experts.
oh, yeah, and we're always looking to connect with people, so don't be shy.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Candice, and enjoy life on the road. Enjoy it for all of us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be part of your podcast.
Well, we'll talk to you soon, Candice. Bye.